Okay, and then say, hi everybody, this is Joe Maldonado from Griffin's Claw, the School of Practical Magic. And with us today we have our guest, of course, Nanu is on the call as well. She drinks coffee, I drink tea. And we are very happy to introduce Jennifer Stoeckl with us again today, who is going to be talking about a complicated subject to me who is all right brained, but she's going to make it so much easier for you about the genetic formula on creating the dog that you want. Is that complicated, Jen, or what?
Yes, it's a very big topic for sure, but we're going to hopefully break it down for everybody so that they can have a good idea.
Good, 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 good. And then, I know yesterday we were talking and she's like, I have so much information. How do I condense this all in like 15 to 20 minutes? I'm like,
That's
just
right.
just talk, just talk. We'll be fine. And I know you have some pictures that you wanted to share with us as well, correct?
Yes, that's
Oh,
correct.
okay, okay. So first of all, can you just briefly introduce yourself, who you are, and why do you think you know it all?
Oh,
This
shoot,
topic.
I do not know it all for sure. But my name is Jennifer Stoeckl. I am the CEO and co-founder of the DireWolf Project. And so I work with my mother, Lois Schwartz, who was the founder in 1988, to promote and breed American Alsatian dogs, which are the dogs associated with the DireWolf Project. And so we are working to breed back the look, the bone and body structure of the extinct prehistoric direwolf um, in a family companion dog using only domesticated dog breeds. So that's our deal, and we've been working a long time to get there, but we're dedicated to health and temperament first. And so it takes a real long time, and we don't really have perfect look in all of our dogs yet, even though it's been 30 plus years. And that's because we always have to go back and work on health and temperament. And, the genetics of animals is very, very complicated with millions and millions of different alleles to deal with. And so you kind of have to go back and forth sometimes when you don't want to. Even though there's a beautiful animal there and you want to keep that one, there's something else that makes it so that you can't keep the one that you want.
And, and
So,
and I must interrupt you because I
yeah,
hear
please.
grunting, and I know it's not your stomach saying that you're hungry. Can you show us who you have with you that's making all these little
Yes.
grunts?
Yes, I would be happy to show you this right here. Making his debut on video
Hey.
is little black dragon. And Black Dragon is from the dragon litter out of Stanley and Darla. And so he has a very rare coloring. I don't know if you can see that, but we call it a reverse black, but it's actually in the wolf circles, they call that a black phase.
Mhm.
And so it's where the coat color is black, but underneath in the undercoat, it's a silvery color. So
So
you can
are
see that
are
too.
all your black pups and dogs like that? Do they all have that if they're black on the outside, they're silver or gray on the underneath? Is that true of all of them? No.
Nope, there are different types of black. And so there's certain blacks that are black underneath and black on the top, and the dog is all black.
Hmm.
Then you have a black and tan coloring where the back is black, but the leg part is a tan or a cream color.
Hmm.
And so there's lots of different kinds of black. This one happens to be extremely rare. In fact, I don't know of hardly any other dog breeds that have this particular trait prominently in their breed. I know the Malinois has the reverse look, but it has too much orange in it, so it doesn't really look wolfy. And then they have a shorter coat. So this is a very rare color in the domesticated dog circles. It's mostly associated with the black wolf.
And
So
is that something that you planned in this
yeah,
particular litter? Yes, you did.
yes,
So,
absolutely. Yeah, this color is the future of our breed. You can see right here, this is a silver sable color in the background. That's Skipper.
mhm,
He's actually the dog that we used when I wrote the DireWolf Project book. And so you can see there that he looks very wolfy. There's lots of wolfish traits to him, but he does have a black mask. And so that wolves don't really have that when they're grown.
Okay.
So anyway,
So if
yeah,
I can ask you this while we're looking at Skipper, you say that he has a black mask, and to me as a viewer, he looks like he has a white mask. Can you describe that coloring?
this right here on his muzzle is
Oh,
all
is
black.
that the mask?
Yeah.
I thought around the eyes was what you call the mask.
No, the muzzle part. And
Oh,
it can vary. It can go all the way over the top of the head and the skull, or
okay.
it can be as small as just by the nose, that black mask.
Oh, okay, okay, because that again, I'm just a person that loves the dog. So, a couple questions. Um, so how, I mean, coding, genetic coding is to me as a regular dog owner is very complex, very complicated. So, how many? Oh, this is an open-ended question. How many genetic coding possibilities are there um, when you put
Right.
these
There,
dogs together, right?
yeah,
Right.
there are millions and millions. So when you have a litter of puppies, you could see a whole bunch of different things. And what we try to do as breeders is narrow down what possibilities we might be seeing. And
Okay.
we want to narrow them down to the possibilities that we'd like to see.
Mhm.
And that takes a lot of dedication and a lot of information that you have to put in. And there are so many possibilities that we don't know are even in there.
Mhm.
So if you DNA test your animals like we do, then you can find out 172 different canine genetic diseases, but there are so many other canine genetic diseases that you can't find out about.
Right. Right.
And so so you may come up with something that has all that has is held on a whole bunch of genes,
Mhm.
and you don't know that it's going to show up
Right.
because you've never seen it before, and here it is in this litter. And
So
that's because in the background somewhere it's being held in the code.
right. Right. So if I can just tell everybody that all your dogs are DNA tested, so
That's
that
correct.
means every single dog that comes out of Vallecito kennels, or the Direwolf Project is tested for their genetic makeup, so to speak. So not only does the owner see what potential possibilities you have, and what's this dog going to look like, but you also have ancestral lineage that goes into that effect. And then you have all this coding, which I don't understand, with letters of capital A's and small b's and numbers and all that. That is the coding that you're looking at, correct? When you put dog A with dog B, and then they mate and you have a litter, is that's what you're looking for, right? You don't necessarily look at furnishings, and you just know that this code and this code equals that code. Is that correct?
As far as a DNA test goes, yes, but
Yes.
they don't know everything that is possible. So they don't have a code for if your dog's going to have a short tail or a curly tail or an up or tail that curls up, or they
Ah,
don't have a code for if the ears are going to stand up or be down, or how long the ears are going to be, and all of that. So so they do have a lot of things, like how much white is your puppy going to have on its coat, or
okay.
what color its coat might be, or whatever. And so we do look at those, and absolutely we work with the DNA to find those. But then there are other things like hair length
Right.
that they might not have. So
Right. And so for things such as ears up or long or short tail, so how do you as a breeder know what those puppies are going to have? Is it just through experience? Since they don't have that coding, to tell you that information, how do you know that's what's going to happen or not?
right. Yeah, exactly. That is the art of breeding for sure. The Because you don't know exactly where it's being held on the code of the DNA,
Hmm.
then you
Oh,
definitely there's a lot more trial and error. You have to kind of breed in order to see what happens. And then once you breed enough, then you start to begin to see patterns. So it
right.
could be held on bunch of genes,
Right.
and all of those genes have their own abilities. So for
Mhm.
example, ears erect or ears down is one of that. You know, it's held on several different aspects of the genetic code.
Mhm.
And so if you have one of those genes that's going to help with the cartilage in the ear, you might not have another one of those genes where the ear is placed on the head. And so even though the
Oh,
cartilage,
I see. Yeah.
yeah, even though the cartilage may be nice and thick, the ear itself is not placed on the head in such a way that promotes the erectness of the dog's ears.
Wow. Wow. So, so again, is that something that it's the same question, I guess. It's you don't know unless you've been experienced and have witnessed this, and then you could say chances are, odds are that the ears will be erect, or the tail will be short, or the tail will be long, right?
Right. So for you could have, if you knew in the pedigree, for example,
Yeah.
that a dog's parents going all the way back had erect ears,
Yeah.
you could have a pretty good idea that
Right.
the puppies in this litter
Right.
are gonna have erect ears. You could
Right. Right.
have that, yeah.
So basically, so when you're planning, like you have, if maybe you could talk about this a little bit. So you have the next litter that's coming up. What generation is that? Is that the second generation for you or third? And can you talk a little bit about what lines are put together to make this next litter and why?
Yes.
And
Yeah, for sure.
all those
The next
questions.
yes, the next litter is a litter, it's a third generation litter. And the way we denote that is because it's taken us 3 generations from the last crossbreed. So the DireWolf Project does not believe in breeding in a closed stud book or a closed population. We believe that in order to be structurally healthy and genetically healthy, you always have to bring in outside information in order to continue to be diverse in
Yeah,
your genetic makeup.
right.
And so there's a formula for that. It's not, you don't want to get so diverse that you lose everything that's great about your breed, but you
Right.
definitely need to be not not so not so strict in all of your DNA that everything is exactly the same no matter what dog you breed.
Right.
That's not genetically healthy.
Right. Right. Right.
So that is why this happens to be a third generation away from the most recent crossbreed. And the most recent crossbreed was an English Mastiff. And if you think about a dire wolf, you don't think about an English Mastiff.
No, you don't. You don't. Nope.
Right.
Nope.
But the whole the whole reason for adding in the English Mastiff is number one, the calm and gentle and sweet and stable temperament that they have in certain lines of the English Mastiff. And number two, we really want to increase the bone and body structure of our dogs to really get closer to the dire wolf instead of just the skinnier, more fleet of foot gray wolf. So that requires crossing in animals that have more bone than we do.
Okay,
So
and if I
that
can
is why.
interrupt you for 1 second, because I know you had an idea yesterday. For anybody that's on this call, if you'd like to type into the chat window, what is your idea of a perfect dog? What would you like your dog? What kind of dog would you like to create? You know, a no barker, tall, thin, long fur, short fur, you know, whatever. If you could just go ahead, and the chat window is down here. Um, you know, or I think Nanu said if you have any comments or questions, feel free to type them here. Just go ahead, and if you can share with us what kind of dog you would be looking for. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jennifer. Did I totally dissuade you? You off on
No.
another path? And I went, boom, let's interrupt that thought. I'm sorry.
Absolutely. That's where we began. So we began by thinking about what was important to our modern family.
Right.
So when we had dogs in the past, they typically were dogs that would do important work for humans. But now our communities have been changing so drastically that we don't actually go out and you know, do a lot of the same jobs that we had done before. Now there still are sheep herders and there still are cattle ranchers, and those particular people do have working dogs that are that do perform great jobs for them. But we've changed and shifted in a lot of our cities and towns. We don't see people who need animals that have a lot of drive, or that have a lot of energy. And so when we first began in 1988, that was the most important thing that Lois started with, was to find out how to create a dog that people wanted, that didn't have the drive and the energy.
Right.
So they were calm and stable. So she really worked on the temperament for a long time
Yeah.
in order to get that. So that was the first
And it's
aspect.
really interesting. I was just talking to a service dog trainer, a colleague of mine, the other day, and we were talking about looks and service dogs, and she said, sometimes you have to bypass the looks to get the perfect temperament. And it's
Right.
not. I wasn't saying that I didn't like the looks. I was just talking about, the appearance. Like you want a certain dog that is yours to appear a certain way, but sometimes temperament far surpasses that need, and health far surpasses that need, and you get this perfect being that is presented to you. So go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. We've had several naysayers have come around and said, well, your dogs don't look anything like a wolf. And
Right.
that, we understand it takes time to
Yeah, we
get,
know that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Noted.
When you're very dedicated to the health and temperament first, just like you said, sometimes you have to choose a dog that has a better temperament but doesn't have the look you want. And
Right.
that's when you really know that someone is breeding with integrity,
Yeah.
because they're not just selling a beautiful face to anybody out there.
Right.
They're actually making sure that the health and temperament are good before they go out into the public. So yeah,
Right,
we're
right.
very
So
dedicated
I
to that.
wanted to ask you about genetic coding and coloring. So I was curious because I was researching, just Googling, really, that's my way of researching. Uh, how would you get, a black puppy, for example? And I was, now I'm probably not wording this correctly, but I remember reading something that you could have two brown dogs that mate and get a black puppy because the genes are similar. Is that correct? Is
That
it?
is correct. You
Okay.
could do that. That's possible, yes.
Okay.
So you have to understand that there are genes that dilute the color. In fact, you can have a white dog that is genetically black in its genetics.
Okay. In genetics.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
No, I
that's,
got it. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, that's because it has another gene that modifies the black.
Mm.
So even though it has the black gene, there's another gene that totally dilutes any black on the hair. And so that's why the dog looks white, even
Right.
though it has a black gene. And that's the same if you have a like a chocolate lab, for example.
Yeah.
That chocolate lab, it has the genetic makeup for black. All labs have black
Mm-hmm.
in their genetic makeup, but
Wow.
they also have modifiers that change the
Okay.
coloring to a different color. That's why you have
Okay.
yellow labs and chocolate labs. They're still all black. They just
Right.
have a modified gene.
So when you have the puppies tested, do those modifiers come up in a test so that this dog has that gene with this modifier?
Yeah, those particular ones, yes, they do come up. Yeah.
Okay, so you would know again what to put A and B together. What about temperament? What kind of genetic configuration are you looking for to get someone that said that their focus is to always have a calm dog, so to get a
Yeah.
calm temperament, are you looking at specific genetic makeups?
Right. So temperament has absolutely no genetic coding that is known,
Okay,
unfortunately.
okay. So
We wish.
I know too that there are so many variables on that. I mean, you can have, environment is a huge factor, in the calmness of a dog, However, what if you have two dogs that are totally berserko, neurotic dogs, and and they produce a litter. I mean, again, I guess that would be breeder speculation to say, well, you're going to have half and half. Some will be calm, some won't. I mean, is that the breeders, again, knowledge of that?
Right. So there was actually a really big research done in the 1950s on temperament. It
Mm-hmm.
still remains the most comprehensive research ever done on temperament. And they actually had, I believe, at least 5 different dog breeds of different classes that they isolated and bred. And so they bred the pure strain and they temperament tested um, during those early times, and they recorded and observed all kinds of behaviors. They had them in exactly the same location and exactly the same food, exactly the same interaction.
Mm-hmm.
And then they recorded the puppies' differences. It's actually really, really fascinating. I don't know if we could do it today just because of all the regulations and,
Yeah,
fear that might go along with doing some of that.
yeah,
But they learned that environment does play a big part in what happens to the behavior of your dog after a certain age. And
yeah.
they also were able to see different stages of puppy growth. And so the very earliest stage is the neonatal stage, and
Mm-hmm.
that lasts from about birth to about 2.5 weeks old.
Right.
And what we do in this particular breed is we actually temperament test by standardized testing that we have uh, put together in order to hopefully shift our puppies before they have environmental
Yeah.
stimuli to
Right.
change their behavior.
Right.
So we temperament test at birth. So the first or second day that they are born. We
Mm-hmm.
know at that time that no part of the environment
Right.
has changed anything for any of those puppies.
Right.
It only the environment in the mother, but all of those puppies would have had the same change if that
Right,
had occurred.
right, right. And I think you and
So
I had a conversation at one point with regards to one of your pups that you had tested, and he scored like this perfect score, and yet he ended up in the hands of, an owner that kind of instigated a little bit of aggression and protection and guarding. That's what the owner wanted. So the breed, may be very intelligent, and maybe that's, again, it's training, and it's environment that influenced him. Whereas if someone else would have taken, that particular puppy and, had a calm, peaceful environment, la la la, that dog would have been maybe a sleeper, or a lounging dog or a TV dog, So I,
right.
I think we know that I think most of us are aware of that, that environment does have a lot to do with it. But I think what's most important is, our knowledge that we are getting as much of a comprehensive package as you can deliver,
Yeah, we can only give you the potential. The
Yes.
genetic potential
Yeah.
is there, but we can't say that this puppy is going to act a certain way
Right.
as an adult. We cannot do that. It
Yeah.
just doesn't work like that. There's so many different variables that
Right.
can happen.
Right.
So we can only say this puppy has the potential to
Right.
be a certain way.
Right.
So,
So, on health, on the issue of health and the genetic coding, when you do the genetic tests on this, what kind of things come up in health that you can say influence, this puppy's life, or or does it come up in all the pups in the litter? Are they all the same that would come up with the same results?
right. So first of all, health happens before the puppies are even born.
Yeah.
So we work on health before we even have a litter.
Yeah.
And that's because we need to make sure that the parents and the ancestry going back were all healthy.
Hmm.
And so that health is a very big topic because we don't believe in a prevention model breeding system. A lot
Hmm.
of breeders out there, in fact, all of them that I know of,
Yeah. Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
they all believe in preventing health issues. We absolutely feel that you cannot prevent health issues. They will that's because we don't know exactly where they are held on the genetic
Yeah.
code.
Yeah.
And they can be on multiple genes at one time, and we don't know where they are.
Right.
And so only the ones that we know of that can be tested through DNA can be prevented. All the other ones we can't necessarily prevent. We can mitigate them and make them as less as possible, but we don't, they may show up when we least expect it because it was being held recessively on some gene in the background that just happened to come together in that particular puppy, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So we don't believe in prevention model breeding. We believe in ill health elimination. So
Okay.
that's the difference. We eliminate ill health at all costs.
And how do
And
you do that? How do you eradicate you know, you know, a medical challenge or, you know, a known issue that's going to come up? How do you do that?
right, the first thing that has to happen is we have to see it. Unfortunately,
Right.
we can't know it's there unless we actually see it. And once we see it, then there's a whole bunch of information that we need to put together to find out where that came from. So we have to be able to look back at the dogs. That means we have to know the pedigree and all the dogs that were in that pedigree, and have information about those dogs as adults and where they went and who they're with and all of that. So we have to keep in constant contact with as many owners as we possibly can. And then we have to record as much information as we can. So we have a huge health database that we maintain. In it, hopefully the owners will tell us. So we can't ever say that we have such and such information, but we can say that we have reported information because our owners are very invested in the breed, and so they will tell us if anything happens. And we pride ourselves on that. We want a very thriving community of owners so that we can get information back all the time. One of the health issues that is the second most prominent health issue in our breed is Panoceatis or Pano. And the only way we can know how influential Panoceatis is in our litters, if you don't know what that is, that's like growing pains are for teenagers. Sometimes, you know, teenagers will have growing pains, and that's Panoceatis is the same thing in dogs. And so so we won't know how our dogs are doing. We can't know unless an owner actually comes back and tells us, because we haven't experienced the dog as a teenager growing up and what's been happening. So the only way for us to know the incident rate or the reported incident rate is to know from our owners. So we really want to make sure that we have a very good post sale interaction with our owners. So we've tried to set up a lot of groups and a lot of time for people to interact with one another so that we can get that information. And the more information we have, the better we can be about predicting, you know, what will happen.
Yes. Did you have any pictures that you wanted to share with us?
Yeah, sure. Let's do that. Hold on. Let me see if I can figure out how to do this.
All right. Now.
Okay. All right. Can everybody see that?
Yep, that's great.
Okay, perfect. So these are some of the pictures from different types of dogs that we have in our breed currently. So I wanted to point out the different style or looks that we have in our breed currently right now. So this top dog right here, her name is Anastasia. And Anastasia is has the most German Shepherd dog content in her background. So I believe she's a third generation. I don't know. I can't remember if it's third or fourth generation back. She has German Shepherd dogs. So you probably kind of noticed that. And then this particular dog right here, Andromeda, these are all Andromeda. She's only a second generation away from a white Alaskan Malamute
Oh,
cross.
wow.
And then this guy right here, Buck, this is a dog that is bred from the Schwarz kennels in Southern Oregon. Most of these dogs are bred from my kennel because I take better pictures than she does.
Yeah, you do.
But I happen to take this one of her dog.
Yeah, that's why it's good, right?
So this is Buck, and you can see that Buck actually has a brindling gene,
Mhm.
and Lois actually is interested in adding that into the lines. I happen to not think uh it's not my preference,
Mhm.
but she likes this brindling look because of the camouflage feel to it.
Mhm.
So if you
Yeah.
think about wild animals, they all have to blend in with their environment in order to
Mhm.
um be stealthy.
Yeah. Yeah.
so
Mhm.
so anyway, she likes that brindling look that is more camouflaged.
Mhm.
um then this would be a typical silver, like a silver wolf gray puppy,
Mhm.
and you can see very prominently that it has a black mask.
Yeah.
This puppy is around 4 weeks old, and you can see that the ears are already erect.
Mhm. Mhm.
So this puppy, we would say, has many, or if not all, of the genes to help with the ears being erect.
Right.
So wolves in the wild have erect ears at like 3 weeks old.
Yeah.
So this one here is Angeline, and she's another reverse black. So you can see that she, instead of a like this puppy over here, has light coloring on the legs,
Mhm.
and she has black coloring on the legs.
Oh, okay.
And so we call that a reverse. It's very rare. Anyway, it's called black phasing in the wolf communities. Um, but it's a kind of a black wolf gray type. So underneath her undercoat is a light coloring.
Mhm.
This puppy here, you can see, has bright yellow eyes. That's actually a trait that came into the breed in about 2000-ish.
Mhm.
And it was a surprise to Lois. She didn't expect it. In fact, she didn't even really know how she was going to obtain it. In our breed, we only breed domesticated dogs.
Mhm.
And so we've really been dedicated to not adding wild wolf or wolf dog into this breed.
Mhm.
And all domesticated dogs have dark eyes, that
Yeah.
excluding the blue eyes from the Siberian Husky or the Australian Shepherd.
Right.
But dark eyes was, for years and years, the right trait to breed for,
Right.
because you didn't want your dogs to look like wolves for many,
Right.
many years. In fact, if your dog did look like a wolf, it was really frowned upon.
Yeah.
So the more you could not look like a wolf for a domesticated dog, the better it was. So dark eyes was really what everybody in most dog breeds go for. So in order to find a yellow-eyed puppy out of dogs that have been bred for eons with dark eyes, that was really going to be a difficult thing for her to accomplish.
Mhm.
But in 2000, she had a dog that just happened to show a bright blue eyes as a puppy, and she had no idea why this puppy had bright blue eyes all of a sudden
Yeah.
when it was young. Well, at around 7.5 weeks old, those bright blue eyes started to turn, and all of a sudden she saw these golden peepers looking back at her. And so and she was just fascinated and amazed that after all these years of breeding, so she started in 1988 and now it's 2000, they just popped up all of a sudden.
Yeah. Now,
And
did that
so
did that show up in the DNA testing that you had done? The eye color?
no,
That
no,
does
they
not.
do know how to find the blue eyes that happen in the Siberian Husky and
Oh,
the
okay.
Australian Shepherd, but they have not found a yellow eye gene. No.
Got it. Yeah.
So she capitalized on that and bred that puppy and just started kind of keeping an eye on those lighter colors. And pretty soon she had lots of puppies that were showing the bright blue eyes that turned gold when they were about 7 weeks old.
Mm-hmm. So would you be breeding a male and a female with that eye coloring combination to obtain a litter that has that eye coloring combination?
Yes, if
Okay.
both, you can kind of think of it, it's a little loose, but you can kind of think of it like if you breed a yellow-eyed dog to a yellow-eyed dog, all of the puppies will be yellow-eyed.
Okay.
So it would be considered to be recessive.
Right. Right. Right.
Mhm. So here you can kind of take a look at where I've moved in my breeding. All of these puppies have light muzzles,
Mm-hmm.
whereas this guy right here has a black muzzle.
Mm.
And so it's actually been a long time for me to figure that out, because what I did not want was the look of the Alaskan Malamute,
Right.
which has a white spotted muzzle. So if you look at the skin underneath the white parts of that muzzle,
Mm-hmm.
the skin is pink. And
Oh.
we feel that pink skin is an unhealthy trait in dogs and causes more issues over time. So we
Is
really
that
want to,
is that just over the muzzle area, or that's the whole body is pink?
yeah, that pink skin on an Alaskan Malamute is very prominent. So they have a lot of white spotting, a lot of areas all over their body. It happens in patterns. This particular type of white spotting happens in patterns.
Mm-hmm.
And you can kind of see it in stark contrast when you think about a border collie.
Okay.
So a border collie is usually like black and white,
Yeah.
that typical look of a border collie, although they can have different colors. But and all of that white that you see on that border collie is the white spotting that I'm talking about.
Mm.
So Alaskan Malamutes, even though it's hard to see because they have that gray color along with it, it it's actually white spotting where the skin is affected. So what happens is there's a gene in there that eliminates all color on the shaft of hair and on the color in the skin.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so the wolf doesn't have that trait.
Yeah.
The wolf doesn't have white spotting. The wolves in the wild are very dark skinned and dark pigmented.
Mm-hmm.
So what we're trying to mimic the wild type without actually breeding in wild animals. So in order to do that, we have to eliminate all of the white spotting that's on our dogs.
Mm-hmm.
It's very difficult to do. If you, I don't know if you've ever heard about the fox farm experiments in Russia, but they actually bred foxes, silver foxes, and they came to the conclusion that the domestication process actually goes along with that white spotting and the curl in the tail.
Oh.
That's like a natural aspect of domestication. And you can kind of see that in other animals as well. So think about the
Well,
cat,
I
for
see
example.
the photo of Dreamer here with the tail up and curled. Is that
Yeah,
all of what you just said?
but she's holding it that way. It doesn't always curl that way, but
Okay.
the fact that she can do that, yes, that's part of that curl.
Okay. Okay.
So domesticated animals, which we only breed, have significant white spotting and curls in the tail. So
Right.
we're actually trying to de-domesticate or go back to the wild type, or back breed.
Yeah.
And that's really difficult to do in a domesticated dog that has
Right.
developed that, or
Right.
those
Right.
mutations have
Right.
developed over time.
We are we're running out of time, but I while you're talking about the photos, if anybody has any questions that you like Jennifer to answer, you could type them in the chat window. And if not, we're going to go a couple more minutes, and then we'll end the recording. And then everybody that's on this call, as usual, will have an opportunity to speak with Jennifer and ask more questions. So let's continue with photos, and then we'll segue over. So I'm sorry, go ahead, Jen.
I also wanted to mention that I sent over a file. It's a screenshot of how I put all of the DNA aspects together in order to make decisions for the breed. And so you can, anybody on the chat window can, I think you can download the file, and then you can see exactly how I go about putting all of the information together in order to make decisions for which puppies to breed to whom.
And I think once we get out of a share window, everybody would be able to do that. I'm not sure if Zoom allows to download files while you're sharing. So, but stay tuned, everybody. We'll figure it out.
Okay, right on. Right on. Okay, so you can see this little guy right here. This is Essex, and this is Essex when he's growing up, and this is him as an adult. So Essex has
lovely ears.
Yeah, he has lovely ears. I wish all of our dogs had lovely ears like that. Anyway, he has a black nose, indicating that he has black pigmentation underneath all of that fur. And then you can see he's got this darker stripe here. So we're getting closer to that wolf mask that wolves have. All of this top part of their muzzle is dark coloring. So we're getting closer, but you can kind of see right here on his forehead, he does have a little white spot right there on his forehead.
Yes, yes, I agree. So then a black nose means black skin, and a liver or brown nose would mean pink skin. Is that correct?
It means a diluted liver colored skin. Right. Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
Got it.
Pink skin would be an absence of color whatsoever. Here, right here, this is Lulu. Lulu looks like she has a reverse black. So she actually has the look of that puppy that I was holding earlier, but it's actually a brindle instead. It's a very dark brindle instead.
Wow, she's gorgeous.
Yes. This right here is Rancor. Rancor is a service dog working with, he does PTSD service dog work in Illinois. And Rancor is actually genetically solid black. So not a reverse silver wolf gray or anything, just solid black. But you can see that his black is showing through like a black and silver color. So sometimes genes are not solid, and a gene underneath it can show through that it has. And in his particular case, the black and tan type of gene is showing through his solid black, which is remarkable. I don't know of any other dog to do that. This is Shannara. Shannara was one of our lovely females. I just loved her. She's now working as a service dog in Idaho. And so she actually has a flip to her ear, kind of like the Irish Wolfhound. That's because she is, I think, 3 generations away from an Irish Wolfhound.
Yes. Yep. And she's actually the grandmother of one of my puppies.
Yes. This guy right here is Skipper. Skipper, you can see that his ears went up, but the tips didn't go up. So there's lots of different variations that can happen in an ear. Another thing that you might want to note is that on the DNA, they have found a gene for what they call is long hair. But in fact, what it actually is, according to our work that we've been able to do, is actually a feathering gene. So wolves do not have long hair on the back of their foot, or right here on the back of this foot, or in between their toes. And the reason why is because that type of hair would hold all of the snow and ball up all the snow, and they wouldn't be able to walk in the winter. Well, that wouldn't be very successful for a wolf out in the wild.
Right.
So they do not have that kind of feathering. And that's one of the things that a lot of people love, is that long fluffy hair that happens on the back, and you love to brush it and so forth. But in our particular case, we have to move away from that type of look because it doesn't fit with the wolf genes that actually exist in the wild. You can see that Skipper actually has a black mask. So unfortunately that detracts from his look, but it's a very prominent feature currently in the breed that we're working on. The reason why it's there is because Lois, when she first began, remember, we're working on not having white spotting. And so with this black mask there, she would eliminate a lot of white spotting. So now we're working on decreasing that black mask and having more of a wolf mask without adding the white spotting. It's very difficult.
So on the wrap up of this, and I know there's so much information, and we can all address that after this. Is there any specific one dog on here that you would say, you know, that's about as close as I want to get to, you know, the look that I'm going for, out of all these? If we can just go to one, who would you pull up and?
Well, there's two that are the closest that I like the best as far as the wolf look.
Yep.
But again, there's always something to work on forever.
Yeah, of course.
No dog is perfect. I hope everybody understands that.
Yeah,
There's
yeah,
always something that could be improved.
yeah.
So Stanley here is one of the wolfiest looking dogs we have. He has that black wolf look.
Yep.
And you can see that his facial structure is a lot more straight here in the muzzle.
Yep.
And he has those yellow eyes that are so prominent, such a prominent feature in the wolf. And you know, he has the cheeks that come out like a wolf does. So he has the longer mane and tail. So he has a lot of features that we want, but he's actually not the size we want. So even though he looks like a big dog, he only stands, well, I guess he would be a big dog for a lot of people, but he's not a big dog for our breed.
Yeah.
But he stands 27 inches tall at the shoulder.
Wow.
And he only weighs right around 105 pounds.
Wow. Wow.
So our goal in the breed is to reach 30 inches tall at the shoulder at least, and then weigh around 130 pounds. That would be the goal.
Right. And
This
temperament and health, that's where you want to be, correct?
Yeah, we do, because Lois worked on that first. We have a lot of great dogs with some great temperament. They're not all perfect. Some aren't there yet. And remember, we crossbreed every so often in order to add new genetic material when we need it.
Yeah.
And so those puppies are not exactly perfect on temperament or whatever. But the farther you get down into the genetics, the closer we can say they adhere to our genetic temperament.
Right.
This dog here is our second dog that looks the closest in our breed. He actually has the correct size. He does stand 30 inches tall at the shoulder, and he does weigh around 130 pounds. He's a very big dog. He also has that black, all this is not white spotted, so that's actually really good. And he has that light wolf coloring. His temperament is impeccable. And so this dog is probably has the most everything.
Yeah.
So
So we have to kind of wrap up. If I can ask you to unshare your screen, everybody else just stay on the call because we're not going anywhere. And I just I wanted to share something with you all actually, and I'm sure most of you that know me have seen my two dogs, but they came from the DireWolf Project. And for those that are not familiar, You will see them now. And on the left, we have Enoch, who will be 2 years old. Um, and our new adopted puppy, Baruch, who is, oh gosh, I think he's like 19 weeks old right now. So he's not quite 5 months old. So can you just tell us real quick about the coloring and the genetic look of these two?
Yeah, these two are beautiful examples of the breed that for different reasons.
Yeah.
Enoch, they actually both have the liver dilute, or the chocolate coloring,
Hmm.
and which actually increases the likelihood that their eyes will be a very light yellow.
Hmm.
And so you can see both of them have yellow eyes.
Hmm.
And the puppy, or Enoch, on the left hand side, she actually has long coat.
Yep.
So she has a longer coat than he does.
Hmm.
And then his ears are not erect. Hopefully they will be, right?
Hopefully. Or a little
And you
flip
can
will be fine too.
yes, and you can also see that his muzzle shows longer hair on the muzzle. That's called furnishings.
Hmm.
And terriers typically have that, or poodles can have that, or Irish
Irish
wolfhound, which
wolfhounds.
is, yeah, which is where this comes from.
Right, 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 right.
So yeah, he does show that too. But both of them do have a wolf gray color, or it's incorrectly called a sable, but genetically it's called a wolf gray or a gouty coloring.
Wow. Thank you so much. I'm sorry we're out of time. Jennifer, thank you for all your wisdom and sharing your knowledge with this group. Everybody that is on the call, stay tuned. As always, we'll go off mic and off video for you. Everybody that is watching this as a recording, thank you so much. You can go to her Facebook page, the DireWolf Project, American Alsatian Owners. If you already own a puppy or are about to own a puppy or a dog, get more information there on the website. Your website again, which one should they go to?
DireWolfProject.com has the breed as a whole. And if you want to see my particular dogs, it's DireWolfDogs.com.
Right, and then the book that is available on Amazon.
Yes, it's called DireWolf Project, Creating an Extraordinary Dog Breed. It looks like this. It's got Skipper on the cover. This is the not for resale copy, but yours won't have this.
Right.
But anyway, it's got you can see it has a ton of information. I'm actually right now working on the audio book version, so hopefully that'll be coming out before the end of the year.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you, Jennifer. We're going to stop recording. Thank you, everybody else, for joining us. Everybody else, stay tuned.